Player's Pick podcast, picks and perspective with Chris Johnson. Palpable paradox.
Hello. Dean.
Buddy, how's it going?
Good, man.
PG.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too. I've seen you everywhere, but I don't think I've ever actually talked to you.
Same. Yeah, I see. And everybody's like, oh, Dean Lamb, fucking wow.
Oh, dude.
Archspire, bro.
Everybody's always talking about me. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, no, it's well, kind of funny though. I just recently, my good buddy Don Wade, who is in this project with me, we've been creative together for years, and we're doing this new project, and he landed this gig as an art teacher, high school art teacher, like total dream job for him.
Mm-hmm.
And one of his main students is this young girl named River. And she's blind, almost blind. Like she has to like get right up on the paper, you know, to like do drawings and stuff. But she's super into metal.
Oh,
and she's like talking his ear off about, oh, do you like Dream Theater? Do you like Megadeth? Blah blah blah. And then she came in recently and was like, Archspire, Drone Corpse, Aviator, and she's like, and so he came to me back like, dude, that's so funny that's happening right now because Dean's gonna be on the podcast. I'm actually firing it back up. Blah, blah, blah. So.
That's sweet. I like to hear that. That's cool. It's like a really weird band for people that don't listen to extreme death metal to get into, because it's like, why would you listen to, like, some people are like, hey, so I don't listen to the genre, but should I check out your band first? I'm like, no, dude, no, don't. Listen to something a bit more like palatable or like accessible or something. I don't know, but
dude, well,
cool.
Yeah, I'd say it's everywhere. The kids are loving the Drone Corpse Aviator, so you know, like don't shy away from it. But for myself, it's funny because I had multiple people be like, "Oh, well, you guys got Archspire. Is it Arch or Arch?
I don't know.
Doesn't matter.
It's made up words, so it's whatever you like."
Okay. I was like, yeah, that's the part I need to figure out. Is it Arch? Because I've heard it said both ways. But
Their vocalist also says Arc. I don't know. It is what it is. It's kind of like necrophages. People say it differently, you know?
I like it. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'd had multiple people ask me to, or like ask if I had listened to the band. I'm like, well, I've heard, you know, people listening to the band, and I was like, dude, that's fucking intense, you know? And I didn't stay long enough to like get it, you know? Like, and I was just like, oh yeah, they're brutal. That's all I knew is like, you guys are brutal. I didn't know the depth of the thing. And it was in the last 2 months or whatever that we've been talking about putting this podcast together. I was like, shit, I really need to like just like smoke a fat one and listen to the whole latest record so to absorb it. And I don't know about everybody else, but Mike, I wish I would have done a reaction video because like it was like just total stank face. I'm like I'm like, what? I can't even get my face to relax. And then it just like. And then some crazy passage would happen. I'm like, huh. I just like exuberant laughter. Like I was like somebody said the best joke. And I'm like, this is hilarious because it's impossible and this isn't real. And like I like that's what my main reaction was to it. I'm like, and then I start watching the videos and I'm like, shit, it's fucking real. This
well,
is
there was a video that came out recently with the URM, like Unstoppable Recording Machine, on their YouTube, and they had a guy sort all of the projects that URM has ever done by level of how edited it was in the and I was like, we're gonna be at the top. And we weren't. And I was like, what? Like it said it was like at like top tier, most edited, 0 feel, and then we were at like the second rank. It says some feel. I'm like, really? Like okay, well, that's cool. I mean, I assumed that we would be the most edited, but I guess not. I guess we left some kind of room in there for the guitars to kind of sometimes breathe a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
The drums pretty much gridded, but
who beat you out? Who was top tier edited?
A lot. There was like 5 or 6 other bands above us in the tier, and then we were in the middle of the second tier. So I was like, what the hell? Like I don't remember, but I feel like bands maybe that you wouldn't expect were kind of higher up. You know what I mean? More like not super technical bands that were more like rock or more like, you know, those bands were just, everything was perfectly gridded, every note on the guitar. Well, I seem to remember them doing a lot of editing with the guitar for us last time, but I also I know that the album before, I did all the production on the solos, so I engineered all the solos, and I just went way too far with the editing. I went way too far. So this time we were like, fuck that. We're not doing that this time. We're gonna like kind of have some feel in the solos. And I think it helps out. We'll definitely go more that way with the next album too, kind of loosen off a little bit so that it sounds a bit more real, you know?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
well, I could definitely hear that definitely in this latest album. Is it Bleed the Future? That yeah, so Bleed the Future. Also, side note, I was listening to that on the way home from the gym this morning, and there's like, am I wrong or is it maybe it's just like my association, but there's that like the turnaround, it reminds me, it's like Slaughter of the Soul. There's like the notes or something like something off of At the Gates. It
oh,
just
okay.
feels like an echo. Maybe it's just an influence, unknowing influence. I'm like,
Yeah,
ah,
it's not a band that many of us like. I feel like maybe some of the other guys were into At the Gates. I was more into because they're Swedish, right?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
I was Soil Work, and I was like some of the guys were into In Flames, and I was more into like Arch Enemy. Like I was sort of just like
mm-hmm.
into like some of the other ones, you know, like Soil Work was like my favorite, you know, for like a good year. It was like, oh fuck, this band rules. They're still
Cool
great.
band. Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I mean, awesome guitar playing and shit like that. But yeah, you sort of like the other dudes came at the band from the perspective and the journey of extreme death metal, Cryptopsy, all Gorguts, like all those bands. I came at it from Opeth and Dream Theater, so I came at it
Mm,
from technical kind of like awesome tight production kind of side, and then I went to Necrophagist. So those guys started more grindy, more intense, and then they came at it from then they hit Necrophagist and they got more into the tech kind of stuff. So it's kind of weird because we have similar interests and we have very aligned musical tastes now in a lot of ways, but we came at it and grew up in different kind of paths, and then we all came together in a kind of cool way where we have different influences on the same genre, which is kind of interesting.
mm.
Yeah.
That's the magic of a band, honestly, in so many ways. And the fact that anybody is actually trying to put it together, these days, like in my experience, because I feel like I've been in a way so far away from it. It's been a decade since I had like got to band practice or whatever. But so, and
Yeah.
I just trade tracks with people. But when people are putting it together and actually melding their synthesis of their influences,
Right.
then to create the new level of that genre or a slightly different version of the genre, right? And
I don't know how bands really do it now because I think that it's so. I mean, makes me sound old, but it's so important to get into a room and actually trade ideas. Like it's so important that all of us live 20 minutes away from each other. You know, our jam spot is in like the middle of all of our the places that we live. So a couple of the guys can walk to our jam spot. You know, I drive takes me like 10 or 15 minutes. Like we are very, very close. And it's so important. We've been writing like that for the entirety of the band. We've been a band for almost 15 years now. This year it'll be 15 years. So
oh,
which is crazy. So us getting together and writing in a jam spot, the way that we're doing the writing has changed. We have everything now. The jam spot totally mic'd up. We have everything going through X32, so we can like track what as we're going. And now what we do more often is like bring big ideas to the jam spot, and then tweak it from there, and then add stuff. But we're still in the room with each other,
mm,
which I think is so important for our writing style. And I think that other bands that don't have that ability, whether it's they live too far away from each other, so they, like you said, they just send ideas, or there's one dude that does 90% of the writing and everybody else contributes a little bit. I just don't think that would work for me. I just don't understand really how bands do that. I feel like you got to be in the room. Messages on Facebook or whatever we're using, or texting or whatever, that stuff just gets like misinterpreted so much. Like the actual
mm,
face to face, like, what do you think about this part? And have some of the actual reaction be like, oh yeah, that's really cool. We should do, it's so invaluable, man.
mm.
It's like the reason why we can write music.
I'm glad to hear that you're still doing it that way because I mean I am working with one of my old bandmates now and it's great. It's just a two-person project, so we are doing a little bit of tossing tracks to other people and having them put stuff on it, but like the process, knowing all too well, just in the creative spirit, like when I've been working for these different brands through the years, like, and I had to be a part of a creative team. It's like being in a band in that way when you're like, okay, we're gonna launch this product. how do we come together with all of our strong points and launch a product correctly, right? It's the same. You're kind of doing that with a band, but the band is a little more whimsical, right? Because there's this freedom of self-expression in the realm that you kind of have some agency over. And but to hold, one of the things that we've been experiencing is like sitting here and he'll do something and I'm like, cool. And he's like, well, do you like it? And I'm like, I don't know yet, man. Like it's better than the last thing. Let's keep going, right? And so and I'm kind of helping produce his stuff. He's kind of helping produce my stuff, and but having that real time reaction and like feedback from somebody is great, as well as hopefully your people can hold space for you to not feel under the gun, right? Like when you're trying to communicate something, you can say, oh, like, is that good? Is that good? Well, I don't know. Let's find out. In context, maybe it's amazing, and then like we'll switch it up and we'll go, shit, as you did it, I didn't think it was great, but now I hear it's amazing. So
a lot of rules that we put on ourselves now in the jazz style where we're like, if you hear a riff, or if okay, so somebody has an idea and they go, how about this? You have to reserve judgment until you hear it in context. Like you cannot be like, I don't like it. It's like, well, you haven't even heard it yet. Like let's, just because you don't like the idea of where you think that person might be taking the riff, forget all what you think might be happening. Just hear the riff itself, because it's so easy to shoot things down. It's like, and then you get nowhere. So now what we're doing is, let's get, and this is a change recently, let's get broad strokes. Let's get a song of broad strokes. It's not all going to be killer. The first draft is not going to be great. It'll be fine, and there'll be some standout moments. And like, there's nothing better than the feeling of showing somebody a riff and having them go like, oh shit, that's really cool. It's like, oh my God, that's the best feeling. And that's the reason why I play music. It's like, shit, that rules. So having that feeling, making sure that you don't forget that feeling was there, because what also happens too is you'll have a riff, you have an idea, it rules, somebody say that's great, and then someone else will say let's tweak 2 of the notes, and you're like, let's put it in the song and leave it alone, and then maybe in a month or 2 we'll start tweaking some stuff if we feel like we need to. But you got to remember that there was a spark in that riff at first, and if you start dismantling it, spark in there somewhere. I wish we knew where it was. Just like we don't really understand, like, fucking, not to sound like an asshole, but consciousness, like, where is it? You know what I mean? Like, where in that is the thing that made you go, holy shit, that's cool? Because what I've always thought is your inspiration on music, or your interest in music, or what you think is cool music, is a culmination of everything you've ever liked ever since you were a kid. So all the stuff, when you loved Pantera, when you loved Opeth, when you loved some classical piece, when you loved some, I don't know, something stupid you don't even remember something when you were a kid, all that stuff put together, and then you get to be a part of that lineage of writing music, and you come up with this thing that has a spark of something that's either nostalgic or reminiscent of something that you loved when you were younger, and you would never be able to place where it came from. It's impossible. It is lodged somewhere in your brain, and it's probably a combination of 3 or 4 or 5 things. So remembering to keep that spark in the riff, in the section, and then continuing on from there and creating broad strokes and create a skeleton of a song. And then you can hear the flow of it in context, and then you can start messing with it. So it's like a whole complex thing. I feel like we never get better at it. It is very frustrating because you try to write a song, and I was thinking the other day, as a band, we've been a band for 15 years. We have 4 studio albums. We're working on our 5th one right now, and we've completed 30 songs. We've had 30 times in our career where we went, oh, the song is done. That's like nothing. That's like none. That's like
in 15 years. Yeah, that's a
times.
Yeah.
It's you know what I mean? Like some bands can do that in a year. Some bands can write 30 songs in a year and then whittle them down to 8 or 10 or whatever for an album. Like, you know what I mean? It's insane. So really like savor the fact that holy shit, we finished a song. It's like it is a celebratory thing. Like this rules, because it's hard, especially with the, not to sound like, oh, the genre I play is so good. It is hard to write this style of music because you need to write. Yeah, it is like very fast, but it has to be listenable. It has to be memorable, has to be hooky, it also has to display characteristics of the genre. It can't be derivative of other bands, and it cannot be derivative of your own band. And it has to please 5 people in a room, and you have to be
Ooh.
forward. It's like, bro, there's so many things. Every time you write a song, the cone of restrictions or the cone of rules gets put on it, gets tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter. The only way to open it up is to add new elements to the music. And I don't know if we're the band to add new instrumentation, to add new, we love what we do. We find it very fun, but that cone gets tighter and tighter every song you write,
Mm. So is that one of your rules though? Like that it can't be derivative of your own work? I like that one stands out to me. That's like, is that one of the kind of the precepts?
Of course, it can't be. Yeah, you got to be like, okay,
Okay.
what we're known for, but it can't be Bleed the Future 2. Like, it can't be that. It's got to be something tweaked, something different enough where nobody goes, they're just doing the same thing again.
Mm-hmm.
Something fresh, but within the constraints of the band that we are in to still sound like the same band. Other bands will have an album, this album will sound like this, and this one will be a totally fresh breath of, fresh new ideas all over the place and totally new instrumentation. I think that can work really well, and that can be your thing. What we want to do is just write the best extreme technical death metal at the fastest tempos that we can, and that's it. So adding orchestration, I don't know if it's really our thing. Adding, other instruments, I don't know.
Mm.
We had an idea for a while. Maybe we wanted to add synth elements. I don't know. Like, is that us? You know what I mean? It's like, by definition, anything you do is you, but does it still embody the goal that we all had at the beginning of the band? It hasn't changed very much. We're still writing the same way. We've added more technology. We've been able to record stuff in the moment now, but we still got the same goal, and just trying to refine that goal and make sure it's the best that we could do without sounding like we're repeating ourselves. It takes a long time.
No, I really admire that those precepts for your goals around the writing, because on one hand, like I ideologically totally agree. Like, yeah, try not to repeat yourself and expand and do the thing, right? Do something that's fresh. At the same time, some of my favorite artists blatantly rip themselves off constantly because, for example, and maybe the rip themselves off statement is a little bit strong in some of these cases, but like, for example, a band like Meshuggah, they invented a thing. It didn't exist before they came along, right? We had little bits of it. Pantera had a tiny little smidge of a type of thing that this band made a whole genre out of, and unknowingly made a genre, just created their own sonic universe.
Yeah.
And so
I would put them in
from
the
that
category of metal, but I don't even know how to describe them.
Agreed. I mean, and it's almost futile to try to do that in some ways, but the feeling of like when I think about Meshuggah for a really solid example, I think is that especially when you birth something new, it's kind of like the ideological right you have to constantly, I mean, it's your genre at that point, so to speak, right? And so you get to, and they always feel kind of fresh while feeling the exact same, right? And that's kind of the beauty of a really good band too, like that for most of the fans, probably like most of the albums, maybe some of the albums or songs are the wrong tempo for some of the fans, right? Because like the tempo is the primary like juxtaposition between albums, it seems kind of like, in a way, like if you, I don't want to say that all the albums are at the just one thing, but you find that with like Chaos Sphere versus Nothing versus Obzen, right? Like there's an obvious like kind of plane they're looking for. So I always think about it in that way. It's like, well, and I look at Devin Townsend, another favorite of mine, like he's got a wide varied thing, and he will like quote himself in certain ways, and like he will like bring back a song sometimes that he did on an album years ago that has a different thing now that he's breathing new life into.
Right.
I'm not saying that's in opposition necessarily to your preset, but I've always kind of enjoyed when an artist's like, no, this is my universe, man, and I get to fucking do whatever I want in it, and I'm doing it again like this.
Well,
So
some of the standout moments for Meshuggah for me are obviously, and for a lot of people, Bleed was a song that is so different but the same to their other songs. But it is like, if you can come, here's the most simple song structure there is. It's one riff, and it's like, man, that rules. That's an idea that they never did before, really. Because if you listen to it on surface value, you don't really know much about it. Yeah, sure. All the songs sound like one riff, because if you don't know enough about it or whatever, or if you're not listening to intently, yeah, they say it all 8-string low, lots of open notes and stuff. But if you listen to it closely, yeah, it's like their songs all have different kinds of flavors, kind of, that you're right, they have a lot of quoting of themselves as well. Or Straws Pulled at Random, they end a song with like this unbelievably beautiful melodic section with a melody or with a solo over top, and you're like, whoa, where the hell did this come from? Like, I feel like that's when they're the most themselves, is when they take what they're so good at, and yeah, they might recycle the concept or the feel of something, but then they'll add something that's just a little bit unexpected, that's still within their wheelhouse, or it is now within their wheelhouse because they just did it. And you're right, they created the genre. They can do pretty much whatever they want. With us, it's like we're sort of just building on other bands. We've I think that what we've done is we've taken fast vocals, and we've taken that and ran with it. And I think that that's one of the hallmarks of the sound of Archspire is rap influenced vocals, rap influenced death metal vocals. Corpse Grinder did it a little bit. A band called Spawn of Possession did it a little bit. They did fast kind of vocals. A band called Hour of Penance, Francesco Paulo, he's the drummer for Flesh God Apocalypse. I think he was doing vocals for that band. He did a little bit of like this fast, rapid fire death metal vocals, and we all loved that stuff. So we're like, let's do that all the time. Let's do that at all times. So now we're treating the vocals like, not like a layer, not like a wash over top of the riffs, more like, here's another drum, here's another thing that is, you could base an entire section off of just the rhythm, the fast rhythm of the vocals, and have it stand alone as like, powerful in a different way than other death metal vocalists might sound. And it's that's what's taken us to kind of to write something that's maybe a bit more unique, just because we're basing it on these this interesting vocal style. I love that stuff, honestly, dude. Like, we had some stuff off the last album that was based on trap, based on like Juicy J or like whatever, where it was like these really like modern kind of almost like mumble rap flows. And we're like, let's put death metal vocals to that. I think that stuff is so cool. I would love to lean more into that. That's an area that we could go more into, because that type of music is so popular. And I mean, whether or not you like it, whatever, there is a swagger or a confidence or a something in that genre of music that makes it popular. There's a reason why people like it. And if you take that and you make it about aliens, you make it about crazy shit, make it about when you add death metal vocals to it, I think something in there works, something in there clicks. I really dig it. Plus, we add a lot of classical music inspiration. So we have, I straight up blatantly rip off Mozart a bunch of times. I try my best to rip off J.S. Bach. I listen to a lot of like early 1900s, like impressionists, sort of like a Ravel and Debussy, and those guys, they have this spaciness, and they have like, I love adding that stuff sometimes, taking a step outside, for lack of a better term, but that is really it. You go into more augmented stuff, you go into more, whole tone kind of areas, you go into more, what key are we in? I don't even know, kind of, spaciness. And then you go back into the typical kind of harmonic minor, diminished, or whatever kind of stuff that you do normally in death metal. I love taking a step outside. I think that that's maybe where we have our strongest points. It's writing really fast riffs that are aggressive and pushing and really fast, and then you take a break and you add a clean section that has an outside element to it, and you're like, whoa, like, where am I? And it's that dynamism or that context, the contextual switching that I think keeps it at least somewhat listenable. Not to our parents, but to people that like, you know what I mean? Although some of our parents love the band, but of course,
Sure. Yeah.
our moms are like, some of our moms are biggest fans or whatever.
My mom, I told my mom about this project I'm working on. I'm like, Dawn and I are working on this thing. She's like, is it gonna be screaming again? You know, and I'm like, she's like, I don't mind the music. I just don't know what you're saying. I'm like,
Is it
we've had this conversation before, Mom. I'll give you the lyrics. You got to learn it.
okay? So how old is? I guess your mom probably has listened to the Doobie Brothers before.
Oh yeah, yeah. She's super.
No one can understand Michael McDonald's voice ever. Like, like what are you saying? Like, and so you take that guy and you go, well, this is cool. This is yacht rock. This is sweet. But I don't understand death metal vocals. Like, what the hell is that guy saying? What is that? He's like mumbling, wailing. But
Yeah, I had to explain it to her this way. I said, look, I said, men and women, despite all our equality, we're pretty different, okay? And I just want you to know this about your son, that, I was raised by a dad and a stepdad. Both of them had anger issues. One of the reasons why I ended up in a metal band was because I needed some place to put it. I needed to like find the outlet for the aggressive, like, and to connect with. Some guys go out and they get a construction job and they do that all day long. They pound hammers and do all the stuff. And that's like one of the ways in which they connect with like the builder quality, like the setting up, the tearing down, and the extreme ends of their emotional range, right? I do some of those guy things. I lift weights, I'll go, whatever. But I mostly am a creative person. And so when it comes to like doing something kind of extreme emotionally, I'm into this side of things. I like the soft side too, and she knows that. But like, I'm just like, you have to think about it this way. Like, it's like being a kid and just like, you know what, I'm gonna build a Lego castle and then I'm gonna destroy it. And you get into this kind of thing, and it's like fun. It's for the sake of doing it, not necessarily because I'm evil, not necessarily because I got murder on my mind, but like it's like
when did you start playing? When did you start playing music?
I started playing messing with the instrument when I was 16. I'm 47 this year. I didn't really get into like a band situation until my like 19, 20.
Okay, yeah. So you started with guitar though?
Yeah, well, saxophone actually when I was in third grade, technically, but that was only like third and fourth grade, and then.
Have you always loved the practicing, or like have you always loved the journey of playing guitar? Like, yeah, have you been one of those people that's like, I want to be good at guitar, or have you been like, I'll pick up a guitar and I enjoy just the act of playing it, and I don't necessarily have a ton of goals, but let's just play it because I like it?
Yeah, the second one is more my thing. It's because, and I've had both a little bit. I have moments of like, I'm going to get really good. And then I learn something and then I watch somebody else and I'm like, oh, I'll never be that good though. So that's interesting. So maybe my goals are different than what the ego wants. The ego wants to be the best in the room for all these reasons. But if I'm gonna have a sustainable relationship with this instrument, it's probably best for me to just enjoy the journey and have a good time. I'm gonna cure this light coming in through my window. Hold on a second.
Lens flare.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right.
Yeah. So you're saying that the comparison really is the it's a
Thief of joy, they say. Thief of joy.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, I've always compared myself to other guitar players, and the older I get, because now I'm 36, I do care less and less, but every once in a while it comes back, and I go, fuck, I'm never gonna be whatever, Like, I was working on a thing the other day. I was working on a Tosin Abasi thumping riff,
Sure.
from the Woven Web, like a really crazy thumping thing. And I'd worked on it a little bit, like the concept or the technique, when I was teaching at a music store here. But I never got too far. And I'm like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to fucking learn it. And I spent, I think, 6 hours on it. And I got it up to 80%. And I just couldn't push past it. And it's pretty hard in your brain to be like, well, how come he can do it and I can't? It's pretty hard to push past that. It's like, Well, because he's a different person, and that's fine. And that's a thing he wrote. And just like the stuff that you write in music, it's a culmination of everything you've ever loved since you were a kid. And you don't know really how it got all together, but it leads to how you write the music you do now. His technique is a culmination of everything he's ever done since he's been playing guitar. And
Mhm.
it's like I can't match that. I could imitate it, um, but we're not the same person. And just like if you go to university and you do, you know, your master's or your doctorate or whatever, and you do your thesis on this one small niche of study that no one's ever really done before in that same way, you push the bubble of human understanding slightly, you add a bump to the edge of it. It's like,
Mhm.
well, he has done everything. He knows all of his, he started just like everybody else, knows his basic chords, knows all his scales, and memorized his fretboard in a certain way, you know, jammed with other bands, learned how to play with a drummer, all this basic stuff that you do. And then he extended everything into one bump on the outside of the circle. And well, that's fine. You know, he can do that. And I won't necessarily be able to sit there and play note for note on this thing that he wrote. Um, but that's okay. You know,
Well, and bro, I bet you he would have a hard time playing any of your shit. And I know Tosin. I love Tosin. He's great.
Yeah.
And he's one of my favorite. I mean, he's a standout player for all the reasons because he's broken some rules, right? Some things that you're like, whoa, we never heard it quite like that before.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's the expansion of the circle, right? That you're kind of describing. And I love this conversation for all the reasons because the comparison is unavoidable. We have to go. Well, and honestly, there's some level of like in the very beginning, right? Somebody like ignited you. Like for me, it's probably Dimebag was the number one, right? For me, for like I liked all these other. I loved the grunge era when people were playing guitar. I'm like, oh, there's simple riffs. I can try to learn some of these things. But when I heard Dime play and I could hear his emotion come through this sweetly, uh, mildly technical, but like I felt like I could hear his voice when he took a solo, right? And I'm like, oh, what that like made me do I'm not sure what this is, and but I would love to connect with that kind of energy,
Yeah.
right? And for myself, and so that and then you have to compare. You pick up the instrument, you're like, fuck, I'm dope. Like my shit is not sweet, it's not cool, it's all chunky. How do I hold this instrument in a better way? Like how can I get, so there's this refinement. And so you kind of check in. Oh, I'm getting a little sweeter. I'm not that sweet, but I'm a little sweeter, right? And that's so there's a point at which you take your eyes off your own paper to kind of go, where do I land? And then and you're like, okay, cool, right? The masters are still the masters, and I need to get back to work. So you go back to work, right?
There's like a comparison with the violin and the sound of the same timbre or the same octave range as a human voice. It's not quite. I mean, violin obviously goes way higher, but it's got the same timbre as a human voice in a lot of ways. And that's why when I was a kid, we would do school assemblies and somebody would come in and play the violin, and one of the teachers would cry, or whatever. It's like a cry. It is if you play violin properly and you play a piece and it hits in a certain way, um it's so reminiscent of vocal melodies. And there's a reason why American Idol is a show and there's not really any guitar idol. It's less relatable. Like it just is as an instrument. And one thing that somebody like Tosin Abasi has done, or Steve Vai, or Joe Satriani, all these guys that have been around for a while that play guitar-focused music, they add vowel sounds a lot to their guitar. So they add wah, they slight wah, they use effects that change the shape of it. And I think the reason why is because whether consciously or whatever, they're trying to relate to people in a way that's, I mean, Steve Vai is the prime example.
Perfect example.
So vowel shaped, it's so vocal sounding, and that's why he's multi-Grammy award winning guitar player. I mean, he is so good at using the instrument as a voice. And with Dimebag, and I would put Vogue from Decapitated also in that group, as natural sounding guitar players that just play, and you're like, I will never be able to do that. I will work my entire life working on all these technical kind of things and smoothing all my playing, but feel, the natural sound that they get is just like something different. Like it's Jeff Lindlis also has a bit of that too. It's
Oh,
just
totally. I love him.
so like it's his vibrato or it's phrasing or it's a combination of everything. It's not because, and I mean all of those guys are like technically unbelievably proficient, but there's something different about the way that they're playing. Is it just makes it relatable or makes it something, and that something is like pretty hard to learn or teach.
I hear you 100%. I love it. The my theory, or the philosophical theory that I have around that is kind of like a karmic past lives type of thing. Some people show up in the body reds to go, and
Yeah,
that's it.
yeah.
Like they're like, you point them almost softly in the right direction. Dimebag's like, oh, dad's got all this gear, and now I'm a bad motherfucker. I'm not saying they didn't work for it. They all have to work for it, but
Of course.
it's like there's certain kids that like whatever, that the younger the better, that you give them just enough space with the right boundaries, and they go, oh yeah, that was easy.
Yeah.
And that becomes second nature. And I've noticed it. You probably noticed it with students. If you've had young students, like one of them I'm not a great teacher by any means, but I had for a few years, I just kind of depended. I was going through music school and I was like offering young kids basic blues guitar lessons, pentatonic. And the ones that came to me like pre-10, pre-11, 12 were just so like, yeah, sure, no problem. Yeah. And they just kind of, and they had no qualms with like practicing most of the time. They're like, this is what I do, X amount of time a day. They come back, they're way better, way better, way better. And I'm like, and then I've seen many of them in their 20s and they're like writing music and feel beyond whatever I had, because I didn't touch the instrument until I was 16 and didn't take it even sincerely till I was 19 or 20.
Right,
And
right.
so I feel like, oh man, I'm so fucking behind. Like it's like a mental thing that I give myself too. It's dumb, that inhibits me. But yeah, it's the natural thing is some people got it, some people find it later and they can get out of their own headspace and allow it to emerge, but the rest of us just go super technical and find a different way to like like have fun with the instrument. If I can't be Dimebag, then I'll be Dean Lamb from Archspire. That's what I'll do.
Fine. Yeah, you give me. But the thing that I always thought is the idea of like talent, natural talent versus like somebody who's spent a lot of time playing the music or playing the instrument or whatever. There's not really much difference between like the whole thing of, oh, you're born talented or whatever. I think it's kind of bullshit. Obviously, no one comes out of the womb playing guitar. Obviously, everybody knows that.
Sure.
What I think is possible, or what might be happening when you meet a kid that's just, you're like, the word gifted might come to mind, even though obviously, again, for me, I'm like, I don't really believe in that. Their brain is just predisposed to solving like a certain puzzle, and they just like solving that puzzle. And the puzzle just might be engineering, it might be whatever, but it just so happens that they like solving the process of practicing an instrument. And it's not that they are so much faster at practicing. It's just their practicing is better quality and they enjoy it more than other people. So they just have this like boosted practice regime, or not even routine, just like the ability to just sit there and ride the wave, what I call like ride the waves of frustration of, you get to a point where you're like, hey, I'm getting pretty good. And then something happens and you're like, I feel like I'm getting diminishing returns. And I always tell my students, if you can ride those waves where you get like better, and then you're starting to kind of like fall off a little bit, you kind of start to fuck something up that you didn't fuck up like 10 minutes ago. If you can just keep the instrument in your hands for that time and play something that inspires you in the meantime and get back up to this next wave where you aren't frustrated again, if you can ride all those waves, then your practice is going to be very high quality. And having high quality practice time is like the only way to get good at guitar. You can look at kids that are so good at drawing. You're like, how the hell did you do that, man? You must have some innate ability to draw. It's like, no, they just have really good quality practice. And they just love solving the puzzle of how to make this look like that or whatever it is, and it can, one of the unfortunate things is that's not all you need. because there's plenty of kids that are so good at guitar or whatever, but they lack the social awareness to really make anything of it. They lack the maybe they don't even care about becoming a guitar player. They just liked it for a couple years and then whatever, they're off to something else. Or maybe their whole goal in life is become a super well-known guitar player, but they can't get their life together in other ways.
I know a few of those. Yeah.
See it like you could be the next whoever, but you won't. You just won't, because you don't have all the things that now you need. Maybe 30, 40 years ago, when the music industry was different and there were big named musicians that they got discovered by somebody and there was a lot of money behind them and they had handlers and they had PR and they had all the backing and they couldn't tie their own fucking shoes, but they could write a sick song and that's all they needed to do. It's not the same now, I don't think. If it was ever different, or if it was ever that way, it's not like that now. You need to be your own PR. You need to be your own producer. You need to be your own engineer. You need to be your own composer. You need to have a proper image. You need all that shit. Otherwise, you're not really gonna get very far. It's sad when you see that. I have a couple people in my life that are like that too. Where you're like, man, if you only did X, Y, and Z, you would be the next one. But I don't think you're ever gonna do it.
Well, and so that raises the question, like, how important is it? And that's the thing, like, just because mine and yours or whatever, we have a certain disposition and we are working towards these goals of being the next this or that, right? Like, doesn't mean that everybody needs to have those same goals, right? So like, and I think that's the thing that I have, tried to embody for myself. Firstly, is do it because you love to do it. If you don't love doing it, if you're not interested in solving the puzzle of any kind, if you're not on any level, then don't do it. Like, find something that interests you where you get to sink your teeth in, whatever it is, and tear that up. But if, and because I have met more than my share of people that are good, could go somewhere, and also they're kind of like, yeah, guitar's nice. I like being a fan, and I jam the covers in my time, and I go to work, and I'm an electrician, and it's actually much more peaceful. I don't want to have to go to NAMM. I don't want to have to go on tour. Like, tour is a big one, as you know. Like, it's exciting and also fucking hell at times. So, I respect that part of it.
Describe tour very, very boring most of the time. And if you can't handle the boredom, then you can't do it, because it is mind-numbingly boring about 23 hours of the day, until it's all of a sudden really not boring. It's like all of a sudden opposite of boring, and you're like, holy shit, our van tire blew on the highway, or we all got broken into, or I can't find my whatever, or your string breaks on stage. It's all of a sudden the opposite of boring. But then you go back to the boredom, which I feel is like, I feel like I've had a pretty good time adjusting when I come back home from tour. But a lot of people have that post-tour like depression because you get the adrenaline rush of an hour a day or whatever. That's one thing. You also get everything on tour is about you. Like, well, that's cool. That's not real life. And if that's your real life, I feel bad for you, because that sucks. That is not an introspective way to live your life. You'll never grow as a person. You'll only shrink, or you'll only become more hard to deal with, or that shit is crazy. And some people live their lives like that. It's like, how you gotta, but yeah, touring is another one. I don't know if touring is as important as it was even 10 years ago. I think it's important. I think it's very valuable, but also you can make a great living just making videos on your computer. It's like,
that's true.
As a musician, it wasn't always like
I think like you mentioned earlier, though, like it's not necessary, right? Like, it's not necessary to get into a room with your bandmates. It's totally not necessary. You can trade tracks from around the world all year, every day, every hour of the day. And it's not important to go on tour to do things. These were things that was that's a relic of the past, really, in a lot of ways. Even though we still, hold live shows in some regard, it's not the same. It's just not the same allure. Partially because I've gotten older and I don't have the energy to stay out and be doing the thing.
Yeah.
It's like it takes a band like Meshuggah to come through that makes me actually want to get out, go down, get in the pit, and like enjoy myself in that way anymore. But you don't have to do any of those things, thankfully. And also, there's something lost by not doing those things that you'll never know until you do those things.
Yeah.
And like you said, when you finally do get a group of people that that care about each other and the project in the same room, and you let that organic process unfold, and some people have to learn to not be precious with their idea, and other people have to learn to give truthful feedback about how they're feeling on the thing, and not pull the punches, and be working towards this common goal. Until you do that, you're going to reconcile yourself to a room where you're the 80% writer, and you're going to like tell everybody what to do, and you're going to be in too much control, most likely, and the project is going to suffer because of it. Right. And same thing with tour. Like if you don't ever hit the tour, you don't ever have to deal with the stress of even a show a month or every other month you have to prepare for, be there on time, do all the things, get fucked over by the last band not cleaning up right, and going into then there's a certain amount of resilience that doesn't get built. You'll never know about what you're not building unless you're doing it. But
I watch a lot of South Park behind the scenes stuff because I love those guys.
Yeah.
And they, I mean, it's pretty common knowledge, but they write all they used to anyway. I don't know. I think now it's different, but they used to write all their shows within 6 days. So they had a writing room. They would have Wednesday, they would take off because that's when the show would come out. And then Thursday, they'd be like, all right, cool. What ideas do we have? And they would have 0 ideas. And in 6 days, the show has to be on the air. It's crazy. But you're saying about not being precious with your ideas. That's the peak example of that. You can't go in there and be like, okay, I want to do this. And the idea is kind of whatever. And somebody else doesn't really laugh. You got to move on. Let's move. Let's come up. We got to come up with a cool idea. Somebody comes up with a cool idea. Everybody kind of laughs. Okay, this is it. We're going with this. Whether it was, the intern that walked through and said something, or if it was one of the main dudes or whatever, let's go with the funniest idea in the room right now and build on it. And no time to second guess ourselves. If something worked here, just got to go with it because we don't have time to do anything else. I love that. But with us, I mean, with Trey Parker from South Park, he often talks about how if you overcook something, it might get 5% better. Let's say if he had 3 weeks to work on a show, it might get 5% better. He's like, but in that time, we could have written something else. And the most inspiring times that they've talked about writing shows is when they have a show comes out on Wednesday and Saturday morning comes around, they have no ideas. And they go, okay, we need to do fucking something. It's going to be a shitty show, whatever. And they throw something together and it turns out to be the best show of the season. How did that fucking happen? They're like, I don't know, let's do something about, I don't know how familiar you are with South Park, but it's like, we'll do something, I don't know, Christmas critters, something, they're satanic or whatever. And it's like, that is the funniest episode, dude.
Hilarious.
Come up with that. And it's just, it's not off the cuff. It's because they've been doing it for a long time, but it's the pressure that just forms, this insane idea. And you can't be precious with your ideas. You just got to go with the funniest thing because you don't have time. I love it.
I think it's a parallel to, First Instinct with Riff or Solo or something like that, like where you have all this practice already in the hopper, you're warmed up and you're not overthinking the thing. It just goes click, 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 and you go bam. Oh shit, was that the best thing ever? Oh, okay, well let's keep it. And or it's the same, it's kind of being open to that I love what you outlined because in highlighting the non-preciousness, because that's one of the key elements of teamwork, right? Is saying, okay, what is our goal? Because the goal is not for the one guy that writes a ton of material in the room to dominate the whole project. That's easy for him to do. Okay, we're not here for that. We're here for all of us to be stoked on a thing and contribute in a way that is, that reaches towards the thing that we all think is cool. And sometimes what we think is cool shifts a little bit, right? But then, finding that place, and like you said, no, we all laughed on that one. We all fucking did stank face when Dean did that riff. Fucking let's go with that one, right?
Yeah, and it's what's great about having other people hear your stuff or whatever is that you get to hear it through their ears too. So you have a room full of people and you play a riff that you thought was just okay, but it brings a new life to it when you're like, oh, I guess I've only been listening to it in terms of a guitar player. I didn't realize that this is actually cool or whatever. Also, the opposite can happen. You can bring in something that you think is so sick, and somebody in the room that doesn't play guitar will be like, yeah, it sounds kind of cool, but does it just feel cool because the technique that you're using is something interesting you've never done before? It's like, fuck.
Brutal.
Right. Yeah. It's just.
Is it just because it's fancy, Dean? You're being fancy?
Yeah, we call those bleep bloop riffs where they sound like bleep bloop, like something. It's like, well, that's not anything. Like that's just some exercise that's kind of it's whatever. But yeah, getting out of your own ears or your own brain for a minute and having somebody else listen to it and experiencing it through them, whether it's through looking at their facial expressions when you play it or just having them there. Since I was a kid, I would always go to music stores since I was like 15 and just go pick up a guitar and play guitar for like an hour, just play and have people come up to me and, or walk by me or whatever. Every once in a while, somebody be like, hey, you're really good. I'm like, oh, thank you. Like, awesome. This is cool. I love that fucking feeling. That's why I love playing guitar on stream too, live videos or playing live shows. I love it when people hear me play guitar. I just like it. That's one of my favorite things about it is sharing the stuff that I love in guitar with other people. My mom would be like, down the hall, I'd be like, Mom, come check this. Like, listen to this thing I learned how to play. And she's like, okay, just stand there. I'm like, check this out. And she's like, yeah, it's cool. And walk away. And it's like, great. Okay, cool. I had somebody hear what I was doing for once. This is, before I could live stream or this is when I was like 15 or 16 years old. And she was the only person there. So I was like, check this out. She didn't give a shit. But,
but I think at the root of that, it sounds like, you're interested in connecting with people through your self-expression.
Yes.
Right. And me too. And most of us too. Like we don't all hold it in the same way. It's not all through guitar, especially 8-string Kiesel necessarily. But I mean, all the nieces and nephews I have around me, they're just like, they remind me of that all the time. They're like, look what I did. Look what I did. I made you a thing. I drew a stuff. I made this out of macaroni. I'm like, awesome. Like, and they don't, this moment you acknowledge it, they're like, yep. And they're off, they're gone. They're like, I just needed you to like, tell me, yeah, cool. Give me the thumbs up. And then they're off doing another one,
You're saying that maybe because I was a child of divorce, that my childhood was stunted and my maturity I'm in a state of arrested development. I'm stuck as a childhood brain and I'm trying to impress people just like I did when I was a kid.
Yes. Cause me too.
I think you're probably right.
Yes. Yeah. I have father issues. They were in and out and things were going on. And I know that for myself for sure. And I'm glad it's sweet that you can kind of comedically, pull that in, and have that awareness, because it is like, for the longest time, I didn't know why I was working so hard. Like, why the fuck am I working so hard on all this stuff? Who am I trying to, and I started going to therapy and they're like, is there a daddy figure that you're trying to like get an attaboy from? Yeah. And I'm like, shit, yeah, I wish any of them would give a fuck, like, and they did in their own way, but like I was always looking for something more, like, can you go, oh, cool. That would, I always wanted somebody to go, that's not in 4/4. That's really cool, Chrys.
Yeah. You want them to go into your brain and pick exactly what you think about it that's cool, and then vocalize that themselves, and you're like, that's exactly right.
Yeah. That's why the peers become the greatest audience, right? Hopefully, right? And especially in a specialized niche thing like we're into, right? And I was going to back up and say that what was it? Did I lose it? Stoner brain. Yeah, what was just that the concept of needing approval for the thing, right? Wanting to be seen, wanting to be heard. Like that's just it's one of those natural tendencies. And I think ever since I've kind of owned that, like it's been easier for me to come to terms with all the project. I mean, I have all these things and I want to show them off. I want approval. I want approval. And then realizing that all the things in my life are kind of like, I'm like, what am I doing? Am I still doing this for approval? It's a good question for me to ask, right? And because there was this big moment in my old band years ago where, one of the members was like, we got to make it. We got to hurry up. We got to hurry up and make it, like 5 days a week practice. We were practicing Monday through Friday, dude. It was gnarly. And we weren't really getting that much better, like at all. We were just smoking a lot more weed, and arguing about shit. I mean, we ended up making an EP, but it was I've had this realization over and over again. Okay, do I love it? Would I do it if nobody really approved of it? You know?
Right.
Oh, well, if the answer is yes, even a moderate yes, then you should probably keep doing it. Like if you like doing it, you love the process, the unpacking of it, then cool. But if that feels like a fucking chore all the time, like maybe that's the thing. You just like shift the direction of the project. Maybe it's a different instrument, maybe it's a different whatever, and whatever you find in life, if you can find something that that allows that space, like for you to got like, oh no, I'm actually pretty good with this. Like even if nobody watched this podcast today, I'm enjoying the conversation with Dean.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fuck it, let's go.
Hey, we're pretty lucky to have found that at all, because some people just, I mean, I had a buddy when I was in high school, and even until he was 28, 29, he'd still be like, I like this, and I like going out with, whoever. I don't know what I want to do though. Like, what do I like? It's like, I like all this stuff, but I feel like I don't love any of it like someone who has a career in entertainment or art or whatever. He's like, I like my job. It's okay. I like going fishing. It's okay. It's cool. I like playing guitar. It's okay. But I'm not so passionate. It takes a long time for some people to find truly what they want. And for some people that's having a family. And so that could be their thing for sure. But for other people, and it just so happened that I found my thing when I was like, I started playing guitar when I was like 12, but I saw a guitar when I was like 8. It was like my family's place, my grandparents' place. I saw it and I thought about it for weeks. And I was like, what was that? And I asked my mom, like, what was that? Like, is that like, was that just there for like, whose was that? And she's like, I don't know. I thought about it for so long, dude. Like I probably should have started playing then, because I was just into it, I didn't even know what the fuck it was. I didn't know how it sounded. What I loved at the time was Nintendo soundtracks for games like Final Fantasy and Wizardry, because my dad let me stay up late and play them when I was like 8, 9, 10 years old in the basement. And those are like some of my fondest memories with him. And you'd get like classically inspired Japanese music, Western classical, like European classical music, inspiring Japanese music in 8-bit form. And you'd get like these cool sounds, and I didn't know how to describe them. But even when I was like in grade 3 or 3 or 4 or whatever, we would have like classical appreciation day once a week, and they would have like a classical piece played over the PA. And I remember very distinctly, there was one moment where I heard a piece and I said, that one part is just like the soundtrack for that game that my dad let me play the night before or whatever. I'm like, there's one moment, I don't know what it was, maybe a certain passage or whatever, but I remember being very like consciously aware that there was some similarity between that one part and the thing I heard, whatever. And it's like, I think I've just always gravitated towards music, even when I wasn't playing music. I just always wanted to do it, I
love that.
Yeah, lucky that I found it.
I love that story and that premonition around the guitar. I didn't say this earlier, but I had my own little version of that when I was probably 8 years old. A neighbor guy named Chrys had a guitar and showed me on the low E string how to go dun 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 dun, and I was like, oh, that's badass. Like, and I told everybody I kind of know how to play guitar. But like I didn't pick up the guitar until I was 16. And then it was an acoustic guitar. It was like, all these things. But I remember having this other little thing. I was like, and I always looked at people playing the instrument and I was like, they look like the coolest people on the planet. The
Yeah.
guys that are just like kicking back and doing this and like, I mean, it sounds mean. And it sounds like it's like a way to scream and people think it's cool. And I'm like, that's good. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally feel that, man. That's pretty cool. We're very lucky that we found that early.
Tell me about your journey with guitar picks. Like, what do you remember about your earliest interactions with guitar picks? Was there anybody that influenced you in the beginning as a teacher that said, hey, use it like this, play it like that? And how did you get to play the guitar pick that you play now?
I had a music teacher when I was like 13, 14, and he had a really long thumbnail on his right hand. And the way that he would hold these kind of bigger, I think he probably used Tortex 1.14, were those blue or purple? Can't remember.
Blue.
So yeah, blue. So he used those, maybe even the 0.88, the green. I can't remember, somewhere in there, but I did whatever he did. I was like, oh, he had like this yellow gem, Ibanez gem that he rebuilt. He found it like trash somewhere. He did like get a new neck put on it or whatever, but it was like what's it called? Desert rose yellow, I think, is that the color? Bright as fuck, dude. He would have that and he would play with a long thumbnail on his right hand and he would play a big pick. And I was like, I want to do whatever the fuck that guy is doing. That doesn't mean he's like, in my opinion, I thought he was like so sick. I'm like, holy shit, I need to compete with him because I need to show him that I'm good. I need to. It's my ultimate goal in life to be like, prove to this man that I can also play guitar. Because I mean, I looked up to him so much. He was a funny dude. He was a real stoner Christian dude. I didn't realize it at the time too. He was just always baked. I'm like, oh, that makes a lot more sense now. Yeah, I got you.
Love it.
But yeah, he would play these big, somewhat thicker picks as far as I remember. But just like I remember the sound of the pick hitting the strings. He was the first person that I ever met in real life that could actually play fast stuff on guitar. Or he would teach me a little bit about natural minor and natural major scales, or show me chords, and it was the first person I ever talked to. I was like, oh, this guy knows what he's doing. Like, he's got this knowledge that I need. I need this knowledge. So I think I just looked up to him and played whatever he played. Then maybe 10 years later, I started. Yeah, maybe 10, maybe 15 years, because I've been playing guitar for 26, 25 years, something like that. So maybe 10 years later, I started looking at other guitar players that were, playing shred music, and they played these really small picks. And I was like, damn, dude, that's fucking weird. Tiny pick? I don't know. I like a big, thick pick that's got the least amount of rigidity. And that was really my thing. No rigidity, needs to have no variable in the pick. And obviously, I mean, I think everybody probably knows this, bigger picks sound better. Big, thin picks sound the best. That's just it. You go in the studio, you play an 8-string guitar. If you play with a 0.88 big green pick, it's going to crush. If you play with a 1.5 millimeter Jazz 3, it'll sound fine. It adds something to it. There's something there. Especially if you add a little bit of scrape to it. It rules. In the studio, it makes a world of difference. Live, I don't think it really makes much of a difference. So I started seeing John Petrucci playing these small picks. So I started kind of getting into it, experimenting with it a little bit. And then I got really into these guys that mostly I play now, which is the 1.5 millimeter Jazz 3 style. I like these, but man, in the last 6 months to a year, I've been playing just whatever these big guys are. He's back to a green
classic Tortex.
Yeah, this is a 0.88. Yeah, exactly. It's like, dude, it's hard to beat that, man. It doesn't allow me to have the same mobility or speed. A lot of the times, I feel like a smaller pick has less surface area, which means my fingers can touch the edge of it in a certain way that's different, that allows me to just get up on a pinch harmonic better. I hate grip on a pick. I like to be able to just feel exactly where it is, but not have not overthink kind of like, okay, well, I want grip so that my thumb doesn't move. It's like, I want a little bit of movement so I can kind of,
Mm.
you know, I do a lot of hybrid picking, a lot of tapping, a lot of pinch harmonics, and I get pinch harmonics with that part of my thumb. So I'll actually lean back. I'll lean back with my thumb like that. So I want
The
to have
tip of your thumb a little bit there.
tip. Yeah,
Oh
exactly.
wow.
Yeah, so it's like I leave quite a bit of room above the pick here, so that way I can get all this big surface area here for pinch harmonics. It just allows me to just dig into them more. These are great for live. This is what I'm going to continue to do live. But honestly, like a big pick at home, if I'm recording stuff at home, I'll sacrifice an extra 10 minutes every time I do a recording session because I can't quite do the nimble stuff as much with these bigger picks just for the tone, because the tone is just so much better.
That's cool to hear. I love that. And so who's making the Jazz 3 style pick that you're playing?
Vortex, yeah, I think we got them. Yeah, we got them through Dunlop. I think it's
okay.
Yeah, I don't
So
know.
it's a Tortex material still.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're good. Been playing them for like 5 years or something like that. But yeah, small pick on stage is kind of really the only thing for me. But I also do, like I said, a lot of hybrid picking. So it's taken me a long time to really even out my pick versus my fingers on my right hand, to really even them out to make them sound similar, because a lot of them will have a pick very loud, very, like plucky, and then like your fingers will be softer or they have a different timbre or whatever. So just really trying to even that stuff out. It's taken a long time. I think a small pick just makes the most sense for me for mobility. But yeah, if you're listening to this, don't play a big pick at home. You got to have a big thin pick at home to record. That is mandatory in my opinion.
Definitely. It reminds some of the conversations I've had with Devin Townsend. He's always played with, or mostly always played with the Tri, like a big Tri, and it was like a 73 for a long time. So a little bit thinner than what you're talking about there, the 88. And he would always use the scrape technique. He was always talking about, like if you want to do this, and he's kind of helping me with this project that I'm working on right now. And he's like, retrack this and try to use the edge of the pick more and get that.
He's got the ear.
I'm like,
dude. He's got the ear.
Yeah, he really does. Really, really does. And then he got a new pick that just came out through Attack Picks. It's like he was with Dunlop forever when I was over there and stuff. And then he wanted to have one point, I think, have a little serrated, tiny, mildly serrated edge so he could get more crunch out of it.
Yeah.
Flip it around and use it regular, but flip it around and go for the heart.
They were out. Maybe they're still around, but they're like, they're called Shark. I'm thinking of something else, but it's like one side is like curved inward, one side is like a sort of a normal kind of pick, and the other one is like almost serrated. Thank you.
The shark fin.
Shark fin, yeah.
Tortex. Those made by Dunlop as well. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. They still have this. I always thought they were like a cool novelty kind of thing, and I owned a couple of them, but I don't think I ever really got into it.
Yeah, I don't know who uses those, but I mean, they still make a few every year because somebody's buying those. I don't know why. I don't know who. I'm not sure what the demographic is.
Yeah,
but
it sounded. I think the gimmick there was to make your acoustic sound like a 12-string. I think that's what it was. Because if you play it with that serrated edge and you strum all the strings, it sounds like more is going on.
I see.
That was I'm remembering now. That was the gimmick, and I feel like it kind of did. Now that I think about it, I feel like it kind of did. But it's one of those things where, like, when I was a kid, it was, I got to get a reverb pedal. I didn't know what a reverb pedal was, but I thought I needed you go to a music store and you find something cool that just markets it right to you. It's like, makes your guitar sound like a 12-string. It's like, well, I got to get that because no, I don't. No, I don't need to. You pick up one.
12 is more than 6, bro.
Yeah.
Come on.
You pick up one because there's a novelty to it or whatever. It's cool to experiment with that kind of stuff though. But the more you get into guitar and the further you get, you definitely get kind of, in a lot of ways, locked in, or you think that here's the only thing you can play or whatever. It's funny because people, I only play these picks, and then you give them any pick and they'll play just fine. You know what I mean? It's like, well, yeah, you kind of, a pick might feel weird for 1 minute if you're not used to the size or the thickness, but then you play it for an hour and you're like, well, I'm kind of used to this, and you go back to the other one, you're like, what? It's the same thing with playing 6-string, 7-string, 8-string guitar. People go, well, how do you play that 8-string? It feels crazy. It's like, yeah, you get used to it. It is
Right.
Takes, if you play it every single day, it might take you a couple weeks, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, I'm used to these other strings being here. You're not necessarily going to be so killer with knowing what to do with the strings, but you at least won't feel weird. And this is one of the problems that, as an 8-string guitar player, I get sad every time I go to a music store and there's a used guitar room and there's an 8-string in there. You're like, somebody lost it. Somebody got that guitar, and then they say, no, I'm going to go back. It's like, no, don't go back. We need more. We need more people playing these guitars, because all it is a guitar with more options. That's it. I still think about it like a 6-string. I still play all the same chords. It's like, you play mostly 6, or you play 7 as well? 8?
I do play mostly 6, like just for leads, but like this new project is almost all 8s except for one drop C 6-string that I have, and I just ordered a new 6-string, or a new 8-string. I mean, 8-string Aries 2, and I'm fucking hyped about it because it's my first one with Evertune. The only 8-string I have right now is my my
sweet.
Type X, and it's got the paw print at the 12th fret. This is technically my dog's guitar.
Oh yeah, that looks awesome. I love the print. I love the crackle on it.
Me too. The two-tone crackle is a game changer. I never loved crackle until there was a two-tone, like you could add 2 colors, right? Then there's all this depth to it, and I'm like, dude, come on, let's go. Like, you have one that's like green and lighter green or something, right?
My wife has one. Hey, what's your 2-tone guitar? You want to pass it to her? Oh, she's skeptical now. 2-tone guitar. The 2-tone crackle. The Kratos. She calls it her Kratos guitar because it reminds her of Kratos from Game of War. God of War.
Oh.
It's really sweet, but it's what is it? Orange and red 2-tone crackle? Yeah. I interrupted her breakfast. She's eating bacon.
Oh, sorry, Claire.
He says sorry.
Oh, sick. Yeah, that's badass.
Yeah, this is the first guitar. This is custom, correct? That I designed. Yeah. This is the first one that she ordered, that she designed. Yeah, because she has a green splatter one, which is great, but this is like the first one that she actually put in an order for. Yeah, it rules, dude. What a killer!
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, she loves that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and my husband. He says thank you. What? She loves it more. Oh, she loves it more than me. That's fine. That makes sense.
Hey, well, can't be number one in all areas of life. You got to take what you can get.
The one that I've been playing the most is my splatter green. Yeah, this is the one.
Oh, that's what I was thinking. I was mixing up the two. Yeah, that splatter.
Yeah,
that's got 2 colors of green on there, or is it just green and on black?
It is just the black with the green, but you can tell it has like the textured splatter on there.
Oh, good job. I love that.
Bumpy is, damn, dude, it's really cool. So the reason why, my wife has this black with green that was like her first Kiesel guitar, and she was like really into it. I also really liked it. One of the reasons why I like it so much is that Ron Jarzenbeck plays, if you're familiar with him, like Blotted Science, dude, he plays like red splatter guitars, black splatter, all these cool colors. That shit is like so awesome. And he's like one of my favorite guitar players. So
he's like, wicked, dude.
He rules, dude. He rules.
Yeah. Underrated in all categories, and not enough people know about his thing.
Yeah. I think he lives in where is he? He's in Texas somewhere. I would love to work with him in something. Do a lesson, at least have I hit him up a couple of times on email. I'm like, you teach me a lesson, or like I'll do whatever. Like I will become your student. Like, and he's like, I don't really do that. And I was like, damn, dude, damn. He's like, if you want, you can send me some ideas. I could tell you what I think of them. I was like, I just want to hang out with you.
Yeah. You're like, let me send you $50. Let's hang out on Zoom for 20 minutes. Right? Yeah, come on.
Seriously, I would do it. I'd be like, let's just I don't care. He's like one of my favorites. That rules.
Speaking of lessons, are you doing lessons anymore? Are you still doing lessons online, or what?
No, I haven't taught for. I think I had a student or two, like maybe 2 years ago, but I haven't really taught substantially anything for like 5 years, I think. I've been just doing a lot of YouTube stuff, and then touring kind of took out of it, and I kind of fell in love with it a little bit. I got kind of burnt out. I mean, I'm sure you know the feeling. Kind of burnt out. I was teaching since 2009, kind of off and on doing private stuff, and then I started working at a music store And like my first week, I had 40 students a week. So I'm like, and I worked there for like 4 years, something like that, 3, 4 years.
Wow.
You know, but every year I would take a day off extra a week. So I'd be like four days a week or whatever, 45 students. And then it goes down to 3 days a week. And then it goes in 2 days a week because I was touring too much. I was like, I'm gone more than I'm here. And then eventually in 2018, I was like, I gotta quit. Like I can't work here. I'm out of 6 available months. I think I was there 2. You know what I mean? It's like the rest of the time I was just figuring out substitute teachers. I'm like, it's not fair to students. So I just stopped doing it. But I've done some educational content online with Riffhard and with Guitario. And I think I'll probably do more stuff with both of those companies as well. They're both really awesome. I do love teaching. It's just, it's a very mentally taxing kind of thing sometimes. And sometimes you just need a break.
100%. Yeah. I mean, in my little bit of spare time, I teach yoga classes. And it's one of my side loves. And I love it. I love breaking stuff down. Also, there's a point where like I've talked too much and I'm breaking things down too much and I have to like repeat myself too much and I'm just like kind of over it I have to like completely get out of that mode for a little bit so that I can re-enter it freshly. And I've had different phases where I'm teaching way too many classes in a week and then I'm like, what am I don't feel grounded in the lesson, you know? And that sucks to feel because I know what I want to give. And if I can't give that, then it's like, what am I doing? You know, I don't want the money that bad, you know?
There's a part of me that thinks that, and it sounds kind of weird, but that a lot of teaching is kind of bullshit. Because if you want to learn something, you will be spending a lot of time on your own, doing your own self-discovery, and a teacher is there to guide you through that process. When you teach full-time at a music store or school or whatever, I think that a lot of it is glorified babysitting. And it's a little bit soul-crushing because nothing against the kids that come in and they don't really care about guitar. That's fine. You don't have to care about guitar. It's all good. But it's like I care very deeply about it. So when you're showing somebody something that you care very deeply about and they don't care about it and you do it 20 times, 30 times a week, you're like, ooh, ooh, ooh. It's not great. But the 1 student, 2 students a week where they are really, really passionate, that does oftentimes kind of dig you out of that hole a little bit. That also being said, maybe I'm just not the greatest teacher because in order to be a good teacher, you have to relate to the student. And, you know, maybe sometimes maybe I just got too burnt out to relate all the time because you got to give them something to be excited about, even if they don't think that they're going to be excited about it. You know, you got to find the thing that I always tried to do when I was teaching was number one thing, enrich the student's life with music in some way. Doesn't mean they have to be a crazy guitar player at the end of our lessons. Doesn't mean they have to know all this stuff. Have them coming out of the lesson knowing more or being more experienced with music or being more enriched in some way with music. That's it. And if you can do that, then mission successful. But it's tough sometimes. You know.
Yeah, I identify with that, and I think part of teaching that I like the most maybe because it's challenging and one of my early teachers, you know, kind of imparted this to me. She said, you know, if you intend to be a good teacher, the best teachers are phenomenal at teaching the basics. Phenomenal. Right. Like that's how the advanced concepts are you know there for the very few, honestly. Like everybody wants a piece of those advanced concepts, but few are ready for them, right? So like there's a lot more people at the bottom beginning whatever that they're trying to learn. And if you can get excited and interested in being good at teaching the basics and meeting them where they're at and going, oh, I see, you're trying it this way. That's cool. That works. Also, try this way and angle it that way because you're missing out on this. And then, you know, and so if you can meet them in that place, then it becomes interesting. But the moment that I just, you know what, I just want to teach people how to handstand today, and I'm not interested in you guys fucking just getting into your first down dog and trying to, you know, if I'm impatient, if I don't have the ability to hold that type of space, then I realize, oh, I need to take a break from all this.
Yeah,
like,
I know that.
Come back and
It's a
Um,
relationship with it that I have.
so would you say? I mean, you kind of you like talked about going through as a a child of divorce and this type of thing, but like in life is other than music, or maybe music is the main thing. What is do you have a grounding practice of any kind? Are you spiritual at all? Do you like are you anti-spiritual? Like what seems to be the common thread that kind of gets you up in the morning?
Uh, yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm not really anti-spiritual, but I'm not like I'm not religious. I'm not, uh, yeah, I don't, you know what? I just love creating things, I guess. That's about it. I just love creating stuff, whether it's video projects or music, or I guess that's just about it. That's what drives me pretty much all the time. It's just, you know, how to create something that's cool or that I'm really proud of and like leaving a lasting impression on somebody else. I'll make
Hmm.
something, somebody will go like, "That's really cool." But like, sweet, that's cool, that's fucking awesome, that rules. It's the coolest feeling ever. So I don't know. I guess that. But like as far as other stuff I do in my life, yeah, I mean, I love video a lot. Like, I mean, I watch a lot of movies, but I love filming and I love editing video. Like it's just very rewarding. And yeah, I mean, I do kind of other stuff sometimes, but that's like most of my life is just music and video. That's kind of funny. It's like I worked the other day. We did a video shoot for like 7 hours. It was like during the day, and I was like, man, that was tiring, dude. I haven't worked like a full day of something uninterrupted in like 6 years or something, like or longer, dude. Like I don't do that anymore. You know what I mean? It's like
Hmm.
it's pretty amazing that I don't do that because I mean I used to work construction too. It's like, I did that for whatever like 6 years or something, and worked at restaurants, worked at. It's like I don't have to do that stuff anymore. Working for myself is so gratifying that yeah, it's just like most of the time that's what I do. Just create stuff, try to get better at what I love to do, and try to remember not to take it for granted all the time because that's really hard because at any moment it could just end and I could have to be going back to doing something that doesn't fulfill me. I mean, I'm sure you know the feeling too. It sounds like everything that you do is very fulfilling to you, and it's
Hmm.
hard not to take that for granted.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely I I have been living a very charmed life for the last decade and a half myself because once I found artist relations, once it was everything's charmed. I mean, I don't even I feel bad for everybody because my life is so good. Like, I mean that's a weird statement to make, but it's like a real statement in most cases. Like, I mean, there's plenty of people that have it way better than me, but I I'm so thankful. I've done a lot of shitty jobs. I've done a lot of weird jobs. I've done a lot of working for the man and like grunting about it, not wanting to show up, wanting to call in sick, fuck this, like, you
Right.
know. And then it's like all these years later, and I'm like, bro, this is the thing that you wanted all along was just to be master of your own domain. I can wake up at three in the. I mean, I live alone. I'm thankful. I can walk in here and turn on everything at 3 in the morning and make a lot of fucking noise and nobody's bothered. And like matter of fact, this project I'm working on, like the coolest solo that I've done so far on it, like I just couldn't sleep and I got up, you know what? I'm gonna mess with that song.
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah,
like, oh. And I got to the point, I'm like, actually, this is developing into, is this what I always wanted? And I like
right.
pushed a few things into place. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna start recording and I'm gonna put the video up and just in case I get something I like. And like the fucking third take.
Yeah,
And I'm like, I still don't even know if I don't know if I can do something better. I don't know, but I'm like, and I listen to it back. I'm like, all right, I guess like, well, at least I did that, like, and it was an intuitive thing and it's guided me into a place and I get to kind of be free and open with my process, you
yeah.
know,
That's so
sometimes,
awesome.
sometimes it's because I'm being disciplined. Sometimes it's just because I'm just stoned and I'm like whimsical. I'm like, I got an idea.
Yeah.
Let's go in there and do the thing. And sometimes that is horrible. And I'm like, well, I usually gave it a shot today. And sometimes I'm like, man, I can't even believe that I had that idea while I was doing the other thing and it worked out.
There,
But
there's like an element. I'm sure you get this too, being in your 40s. The older you get, the kind of the more jaded you get about a lot of things. You don't really care about material stuff generally doesn't really matter. Once you have all the guitars and studio equipment that you need, you kind of go, okay, well, okay, I don't really need much more here. Physical things kind of start mattering less. You realize, like, you know, Christmas gifts, you're like, oh, okay, it's just kind of consumerism, whatever bullshit. But the one thing that stays constant and stays like really important to me is creating music. I don't know why. It's like, well, you can create all this stuff. Creating art is so fucking valuable, even though there's a part of my brain that's like, yeah, but what gives you the right to create stuff and expect people to like it or whatever, you know? But still, something about the art, the act of creating art, whether it's music or, you know, painting or whatever, I think that stuff is so valuable. And it's almost at odds with like kind of how jaded I am with other stuff in life. I don't know. It's weird. Like the older I get, the less I care about most kinds of things. But the more I get stoked about really, really good music, like, you know, I kind of lose myself in the, not that I listen to a lot of music now. I listen to less music than I ever have.
Okay.
Which I think is probably pretty common with people. They get into what they're into when they're in their teens and 20s, and then in your 30s and 40s, finding new music that really resonates with you happens less and less. But the music that does resonate with me is just like very, very important. And to be able to have some part in like creating music like that and being able to be part of that lineage, part of that team of people on earth that can create music and have it mean something to people is just like fucking awesome. Fucking awesome.
I love that. And part of my journey around, I feel very, you know, parallel to you in some ways, right? Like, and I think it's a common thing. And through my esoteric studies, like through the yoga and the Hinduism and the Buddhism and Christianity, and just kind of throwing all that stuff around, I'm personally find myself to be a reasonably spiritual person that, you know, isn't really religious, but like I tend to find God in like all things. Like that's kind of my MO at this point in life, where especially the older I've gotten, the more I'm like the mental connections, the meditations, they reveal all these little ways in which, you know, I've been looking for the connection, looking for, you know, confirmation in all these areas of my life. And, you know, the spiritual, the scriptures, almost all of them say like what you're looking for is the love of God. You're looking for like this blissful, unending, universal acceptance that that puts you at ease, that lets you know, hey man, like it's cool, man, like you're doing good, like you're all right, you know, you're a decent guy, you didn't kill anybody, you know, you didn't rape anybody, that's great, like, you know, you're doing good. You made a new song, it's called what? Drone Corpse Aviator. Oh cool. Well, that's not for me, but that's interesting, you know, like there's this part of us that wants this, you know, parental like full understanding, acceptance, and most of us don't get it. Even if we have good parents, we don't get the full thing because they can't, you know, be our peer and understand that your 30-second note was actually really sick in that one part, right? We don't get fully seen. So there's this yearning, and so we find it through our passions, our pursuits, and here you are, you're finding, you know, universal acceptance through, you know, a group, through this self-expression, through having a platform to show off. Like, yeah, man, my 30-second notes are pretty sick, and people that know what 30-second notes are and can feel those things have an option to feel my version of that. You know,
I think that the thing that you're saying is the way that I can relate to it is like, yeah, you're talking about finding some spirituality in something. It's like if you listen to, so you put yourself back into like the 18th century or 17th century or whatever, and you're listening to J.S. Bach or Mozart or whatever, and you hear some of the moments with like choir in some crazy piece, and you go, it hits your brain in a way where you're like, God is real, because it's like the thing that I just heard is so crazy. And I like, I'm not a religious person or anything, but it's like, that's, if there is anything that I can kind of relate to, that's like, holy shit, some of those moments are like, how could one person ever write that shit? That's unbelievable, dude. It's so sick. Just to be able to even touch a little bit of that in some way, where we're 5 people and we're writing music that's like 1,000 IQ points dumber than anything that they wrote, you know, like Yes Bob wrote, it's still like so cool to have, you know, some part of that. You know, you just like I said, you become part of like the lineage of musicians that, yeah, I mean, there's not an infinite amount of them. There's a finite amount of people that are musicians on the planet, and there's even less that are professional, and there's even less that are like writing music that, you know, many people can enjoy, and it's just to be even part of that that group is like very gratifying.
Mm.
Pretty cool.
It's the creative act. I mean, I think that it's the acting on the impulse is the spirituality. It is the sacred thing, right? It's like, and again, anytime we can find something that we just get lost in the sauce about, we're like, oh my God, I can't. I mean, it's not even work. I'm just excited. Like, yeah, I'll spend 7 hours today doing whatever if it pertains to these ways of putting the project together, the self-expression and all this. And I think that, like, knowingly or unknowingly, when you participate in the creative act, you're it's a little bit outside of time. It's a little bit outside. We get a little bit, even though we're using the analytical and the intellectual mind to as a tool to get there. A lot of times it's the freest expression is usually outside of that. It's more this like, you know, the thing that they want you to do the boomer bends, do a boomer bend, and then we'll feel that you actually have a soul, bro. I mean, it's like, whatever that is for you, you know, you find there's a moment where you're like, I'm letting a little bit more in, and I'm a little more open around the thing.
Yeah, you can expose a lot of who you really are in music. It's pretty cool. A lot of the things, if you can put a trail of stuff for somebody to find if they're interested, you know. It's like, here's all my influences and here's who I love on the instrument or whatever, and here's who I'm quoting and here's who I, you know, take all my inspirations from. It's like, it's all there, you know. It tells so much about who wrote it if you have the right way to listen to it, you know.
Exactly.
So,
yeah. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me today, Dean. It's super fun, and I'm gonna see you at Kiesel Connect, right?
Yeah. My wife and I will be playing there. Was it the 27th?
Yeah.
27th. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll also be at NAMM as well. On the Friday. I think we're flying in Thursday. Gonna go to NAMM on the Friday. Drive down to the factory Friday night. Play on the Saturday, and then hang out for the weekend. Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, I'll be around NAMM Thursday and Friday, down at the Kiesel Connect on Saturday, and then I'm getting back home on Sunday. So.
Oh, sweet. Where do you live?
I'm up in like Chico, California area, so just north of Sacramento, about an hour and a half.
Sweet. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Stoked to meet in person. I think that Kiesel Connect thing will be really fun. There's a lot of really crazy musicians that'll be there.
Yeah. I'm excited. I wish we're any minute we'll announce the band. Do you know the band? We can't say it here, but you don't know
I
the
didn't know
band?
there was anybody else. Oh, sweet.
Oh, okay. There's a yet to be revealed new Kiesel artist that will be playing with their band live for the first time with us as a part of the announcement of them now being on Team Kiesel, which is like, in, you know, he's in the genre, he's a legend, so it'll be interesting to see how people react to the changing of the guard, so to speak, from another brand to our brand. So that'll be fun.
I love that. Awesome. I'm stoked to hear about it.
Yeah. And yeah, where is it archspire.com that people can find everything about the band, or would it be better to go to Instagram, or where?
Yeah, I mean, you check us on Instagram, but it's like, yeah, we do, you know, anywhere that you find music, Archspire, Spotify, or whatever, Tidal, Apple, Apple Music, all that kind of stuff. We have, we put out a new music video this year. We're working on music, or last year. We're working on new music right now. We're a few songs into a new album, and then we'll be announcing a tour soonish.
Cool. You anticipate finishing the album this year and releasing, or maybe next year, or what?
I think it'll probably take us. I would love to get into the studio early, like first month next year. Like, give us another year to write and then record early next year. So that's kind of what, and then, you know, it usually takes, you know, however long to after you record to release it. It's like, yeah, I think give us another 12 months to write, and then we'll have something pretty cool, I think. I hope.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to the follow-up to this album. This is the one I've listened to the most. So
Oh, great. All right. Well, thanks for checking it out, man. I appreciate that. I'm glad you
yeah,
liked it.
it's I actually have really been enjoying like just kind of bewildering people with your music a little bit. It's been funny, like my little niece the other day, I'm like, just shut up and listen to this, and they're like just watching the facial expressions and trying to understand, like trying to follow it, and it's that's what's good about being an artist, right? So don't lose that. I know you won't, but like don't lose the shock value is beautiful, and it's part of like the genre of music as you were kind of describing earlier, right? So there's like it's nice to always be pushing the boundaries and like
Yeah.
finding a fresh way to.
It's a tool that you have to use to to give the listener. You have the tool of beautiful kind of melodies that are kind of chill, and then you have also another tool that's crazy fast blast beats with sweeping all over. It's just another tool. But yeah, it's what we love to do. So.
Yeah, and those super rapid fire rap vocals.
I love that stuff. It's pretty cool. Yeah, thanks, buddy.
Yeah, thanks again, Dean.
Players Pick Podcast, Picks and Perspective with Chrys Johnson.
This episode of Players Pick Podcast is brought to you in part by our good friends at Jim Dunlop Guitar Products, Kiesel Custom Guitars, Roswell Pro Audio and Microphones, Happy Cable Company, Copper Sound Pedals, and our favorite coffee company, Road Roaster Coffee. Go to roadroastercoffee.com and use coupon code PLAYERSPICK to receive 15% off all orders, ongoing, forever. Well, isn't that nice?